All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples of books that I would not touch, at least right now. And I can tell you there's at least one that I would not touch at all, and it is the one that is on screen right now. This is White Tiger issue number 1, and this book was published in January of 2007. And this is a cool David Mack cover. Probably an interesting character. I'll be honest, I do not know a ton about this character, but this is the first appearance of Angela Del Toro in costume. I believe that she appeared in another Daredevil comic back in the day, but this is the first appearance of her as White Tiger in costume, again, published in 2007. And when you look at this book, let's zoom in here just a little bit. When you look at it, it doesn't look like a terribly expensive book, right? I mean, there are 121 total copies graded. 116 of them are Universal Blue Label. 5 of them are signatures. So not a ton of copies out there. But when you look at the values, it's not an expensive book, right? A 9.8 has a fair market value, or FMV, of $160. The 9.6 goes for about $100. And again, this is FMV. We'd have to drill in to see what this book is actually doing on an individual basis. And maybe we'll do that now. Let's go ahead and click on this thing. You can see in November, somebody was able to pick this up as a best offer. My guess is for less than $200. In October, somebody offered it up for $165. It went for less than that. How much, I don't know, but that's beside the point. That's beside the point. I would not necessarily touch this book. There is a rumor that this character, Angela Del Toro, may appear in the Daredevil Born Again live action show. And that is the reason why this book has started to pop up on various hot lists. I'll be honest with you. This is just not a book that I would touch. I would not touch this one. My general feeling is that most people have no clue who White Tiger is, and potentially will not care who this character is after the TV show actually comes out. This is not a book that I would spend a few $100s on just because there's a chance that the character could appear in a TV show. I think that they're making all kinds of changes and modifications to what the MCU is doing right now in terms of scripts and all of that kind of stuff. We don't know for a fact that this character is actually going to appear. And if the character does, is this book going to be sustained long term? My guess is that it will not. We've seen this repeatedly. And so why spend a couple of $100 on a book that may not net you really anything in the end? Again, people can speculate on this book if they choose to, but this is not necessarily a book that I would pick up. It's a gorgeous cover, right? There's no doubt about that. David Mack is a legendary artist. Not a ton of money to buy this book, but I just would not touch it. I mean, heck, can you even find a copy of it, given that there's 121 of them out there? Well, let's look here on the right. Let's look on the right-hand side here. Maybe a couple. Yeah, there's a couple on eBay over here. Looks like asking $100, 55 for the 9.6. Somebody offering up a 9.8 for $250, which is well above the fair market value. That is the first book that I wanted to look at and make mention of. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second book that I would absolutely not touch. And I can tell you, this one is almost a no-brainer. It is Avengers issue number 8, the first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. Would not touch this book right now with a 10-foot pole, primarily because of everything that is happening with Jonathan Majors. There were a lot of people that were really excited to see this character appear on screen repeatedly, to see Jonathan Majors continue to take this role on. But because of the legal troubles that he is in right now, this is not a book that I would touch. And I do believe that raw values for this book are trending downward. My guess here is that Avengers issue number 8, graded copies, will also trend that way as well. But let's take a glance at what this book is doing. There are 3,400 total copies of this book on the CGC census across all of the various labels. But what you notice here is that there's not a ton of sales in the last 30 days for this one. But let's look at the 9.2. This book has, at a 9.2, an FMV of $67.50. The 1 year average is $6,000. The 90-day is $5,700, and the 30-day is $53.50. So not too far off of its 1 year mark. We go down, we look at the 7.5 also sold in the last 30 days. It again is not too far off of its 1 year average. 1 year 1545, the 30-day 1110. We look at the 7.0, 1 year 1470, 30-day $1,200. And as you go down the list, you can see that in some cases, this book isn't too far off of its 1 year average, which means that it hasn't quite dropped again because people were expecting Jonathan Majors to continue, reprising his role as Kang the Conqueror. But with what has happened and his sentencing coming up in February, I feel like this book is going to drop. I feel like the value of this book is going to decline as people come to the realization that we may not see Kang the Conqueror, right? We don't know what the MCU is going to do. We don't know whether they are going to recast the role and give it to another actor, or whether they are going to pivot completely from Kang the Conqueror to some other big bad. We don't know. But I think that people that potentially paid a lot for this book over the last maybe 2 years or so may, try to sell it, and they may be selling at a loss. And that could be a great time to actually pick this book up if you happen to be a true Kang the Conqueror fan, or if you're working on a run. The time to buy this book may be in the weeks and months ahead as the value of this book starts to drop. This is one that, again, I would keep my eye on, but for right now, for this moment, I would not touch this book. All right. So the next book that we're going to look at is another really cool book. Like Avengers 8 is a cool book. There's no doubt about that. This next one is also a cool book. This is Godzilla issue #1. I've been watching the various Godzilla King Kong movies over the past week or so, and that is part of the reason why I would not touch this book. I think that there's a new movie out, Godzilla -1, that is out right now. That is why I would not touch this book. There is a lot of attention on the Godzilla character, and as a result of that, values are inflated. Not the right time to actually buy this book. The time to have bought it was a little while ago before the movie dropped. But there are just over 3,000 copies of this book on the census, which is not a lot. It's not a lot. There's actually one 9.9 out there, which is fantastic. 9.8, there are 600 of them on the census, has an FMV of $500. And then when you look at the 30-day average, it is at $495. You can see the 1 year, $425, the 90-day, $437, and now the 30-day, $495. The book is trending up, at least for the 9.8, but let's drill in and see what the book is doing. Again, FMV $500, last sale right before Christmas, $575. About mid-month, $450. Early in the month, $550. Earlier in the month, $449. Again, you can see it actually uptick here with the graphic. Not a book that I would touch right now because people have a tendency to rush out and buy the book that is in the news, that is associated with the movie, with the TV show that people are talking about. That is not necessarily the time to buy it. You want to buy it before it is a hot book, maybe back here when it was at $330 in October, which was not that long ago. The worst time to have bought it would have been back here in June of 2022 when it was around $600, or what was the high water mark in 2021, $710. Again, I would not necessarily touch this book right now. I would wait for a lot of the attention and the noise to die down, and then I would pounce. If I was a big Godzilla fan, that would be the time to actually pick it up. I can tell you right now, potentially my children will be Godzilla fans. They are downstairs watching right now, Godzilla versus King Kong. And so maybe when this book cools off, I might actually be picking it up. But again, I wanted to show these three books, three generally solid books that people may want in their collection, but it comes down to the timing, at least for Godzilla and Avengers. Great books to add to one's collection. White Tiger, I don't know about that one. That I don't know that anyone's craving to have that one in their collection. But again, not necessarily a book that I would touch. With that said, we are going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, I want to encourage you to give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that as well. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do it on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yeah. Should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that it's time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan. Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combination.